Before I get into magazine dreams, I'm going to have a preamble, explain the controversy around Jonathan Majors, and then get into the review. So Jonathan Majors has been a very controversial figure. In 2023, he was slated to kind of have the biggest year of his career. He had been cast as Kang the Conqueror. He was set to be the big bad in the next phase of Marvel movies. And in 2023, he was going to have 3 movies come out: Ant-Man 3, Creed 3 as well, and then Magazine Dreams. After the first 2 movies came out, Ant-Man wasn't huge. Creed 3 did really well. After that, there was an altercation between Majors and his then girlfriend, Grace Jabari. Majors was charged with assault and harassment. He chose to go to trial, kind of against the advice of his lawyers. Because the trial was around the time when Magazine Dreams was supposed to come out, Disney pulled it from release because Disney owns Searchlight, who bought the film. The film gets pulled. He is then found guilty, and I want to be very clear about this: found guilty of misdemeanor assault, 1 count of misdemeanor assault, and 1 count of misdemeanor harassment. He is sentenced in 2024 to 1 year probation and 1 year of domestic violence, anger management courses, that sort of thing. His career comes to a screeching halt. He is immediately fired by Disney. He loses a number of contracts with the U.S. Army. He was doing commercials for Major League Baseball, a couple of films he had been cast in. He was cut from, so he suffered a pretty big career setback from all this. But more recently, he has been making a comeback. Some big stars in Hollywood, like Michael B. Jordan, has said he wants to work with him again. Maybe do Creed 4. Matthew McConaughey said he was really great in White Boy Rick, and he was a good guy. Then some other people, the Hollywood Reporter did a big story on him, and so whether you like it or not, he is making a comeback. And as people often do in Hollywood, some people are upset about this. Some people don't care. Some people think he deserves a second chance. We are not here to make those kinds of judgments. That is outside the scope of this show. But we are going to talk about Magazine Dreams, which did come out this weekend and was supposed to be his big kind of Oscar run of a film. So finally getting into it. Magazine Dreams stars Killian Maddox. Stars Jonathan Majors as Killian Maddox, an up-and-coming bodybuilder. He's someone who has big dreams of being on magazines, of winning the Arnold, of being Mr. Olympia, being like his idols. His room is plastered in bodybuilder posters. He works out obsessively. He eats. His diet is incredibly strict, and he's always eating because he's got to get his 6,000 calories in. He just pushes himself so much, but he's also dealing with extreme anger issues. When we first meet him, he's talking with a probation officer because he's gotten into some sort of altercation again. He's also living in a very he lives in a poor neighborhood with his grandfather. His 2 parents have passed, and the specter of racism is kind of in the background as well. He's someone who's obsessed, but also incredibly insecure, despite having this incredible physique. He's incredibly awkward around people. He can't really read social cues very well. He's so all he talks about is bodybuilding. He can't have a normal conversation. So it's a character study in violence, in anger, in obsession, and with a pretty incredible performance that we're going to get into now. But that's our setup. Zach, what'd you think?
So obviously Magazine Dreams comes with a disclaimer that I think we've issued fairly here. You did a great job summing that up, Andy, and giving us all that. So it's a weird movie to talk about. And I felt we were talking about it here on the podcast because obvious reasons, as stated before. That being said, Magazine Dreams is a great movie. It's a very good movie, at least. I don't know if it's a great one for sure. I think it's potentially top 10 of the year. Majors is incredible. He's incredible. And if it had not been for this controversy, he easily would be an Oscar nom. He's so good in this movie. Killian Maddox is heartbreaking. And he has pushed his body to a limit that is wildly uncomfortable. He has obviously used steroids and a number of other substances to get here. He has put everything into this performance. And this, although was filmed a time before this incident happened, it's such a weird thing to talk about because he's great in it. And it's such a good movie. And I'm stunned at the emotion that's on screen here. Where do you want to start talking about it? Where do you want to get into it?
Oh gosh. Well, I just want to say when it first started in the opening scene, which is a slow motion scene of him on stage posing at a competition to like opera music in the back, and I was like, this is going to be incredible. Like this is very artistic. I know we're in for a great ride. So from the beginning, I was in it, but I just want to talk about his performance. While the physical transformation is very impressive, that's less important than the emotion of the character. He is someone who is so obsessed because he's deeply insecure. Like he's always asking people. He's like, how do my shoulders look? Are my shoulders big enough? The judges said my shoulders weren't big enough. He's just, it's like, dude, you have the body of a god, and
I
again,
know.
so insecure, and not just in the way he talks, but the way he carries himself. He's just so inwardly shy. Like you'd think he was 2 feet tall, and he's basically crashing out the entire movie.
Yeah.
He has his ups and downs, but mostly down, and those downs are so deep. It's amazing he comes back from it at all.
Yeah, structure of this movie is going to be something like The Substance or maybe even The Whale. What did you compare it to? The Wrestler, right? Mickey Rourke.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
all fantastic comparisons. Yes, this is a long journey down. And it's painful because it seems like when you watch the trailer, he's trying to get fit for nationals. It's so important. I got to get there. Nationals is about halfway through the movie. And I had no idea watching it. Like I figured probably like you that, oh, okay, it's going to work up to it. And it's going to be this big build and maybe it'll happen or maybe it won't. That's our hero's journey, right? No, 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 no. That's only part of it. There's much more happening under the surface. And you're right. All of this is grounded by Major's incredible performance as Maddox. He is so small in the body of an absolute god. He is a man who has no fashion sense. He cannot look people in the eye. He cannot raise his voice to talk to people. Insane anger issues. Like if you tip him the wrong way or go too far, he loses his mind. He has nobody to talk to in his life except Pop, who is his granddad, who he lives with, who basically can't speak anyway, like who he takes care of. Like he watches VHS tapes of wrestling and Olympiads, and has these heroes that he builds up to in his mind that he writes to, just like Stan from the Eminem song, right? Like exactly
yeah.
Stan energy. Like writes him, "Why haven't you written me back? Please, I need help. Help me." Like heartbreaking, dude. So rough, and like it's good, man. He's so good in it. And like it's such a weird thing to talk about because obviously like the actor behind the performance has controversy.
Yeah, that's a good segue into one of the things the movie is about, which is violence, and cycles of violence and different kinds of violence as well. Um, there is an altercation with this paint company that they painted the house that he lives in, but they didn't do a very good job. So he tries to get them to come out and like kind of finish it, and there's like, no, we're not going to do that. Go screw yourself. He crashes out, goes and busts up their paint shop. They retaliate, and he gets beat up. Then Majors catches one of them on their own at a restaurant with his family in an absolutely terrifying scene. And it's just this back and forth, never ending. And then we see other kinds of violence. We see outward violence, but we also see violence of self. Majors, again, he punishes himself in the gym. He talks about, I work until I throw up all the time. He abuses steroids. He abuses other substances. He abuses food. Sometimes he's incredibly strict on his diet, but sometimes he'll crash out and then just order ice cream and cake and fried foods that he's not supposed to have, and then he'll go and purge it also because he's not supposed to really eat it. And again, outward violence, we see very physical violence as well as emotional violence, sexual violence, other kinds of. I mean, that's what this movie is about, and it's about how do we stop these systems and these cycles from happening.
So I wanted to know a little bit more about how it was made before we talked about it here, because watching it, it just seems like such a great production. It's written and directed by a man named Elijah Bynum, who has written and directed just a couple other projects, most notably a 2017 film called Hot Summer Nights, which I don't know anything about, but stars Timothy Chalamet and Micah Monroe as the leads. And I'm like, I need to see Hot Summer Nights. Both of those are great. And that was 2017. That was years ago. Like they were both much younger and doing smaller roles then. So that's relevant. I don't know a lot about his work outside of Magazine Dreams. I know it's a really good looking movie, but Jonathan Majors' direction here is so outstanding as the lead. Like, he grounds the whole thing. He is a man who is physically perfect, it seems, but mentally completely wrecked. Like, everything happening up here is like the most unwell man ever, but like physically you would never be able to tell. And he just cannot find anybody to help him. I'm impressed at how dark this movie gets. If it wasn't for the off-screen controversy, I think this movie might invite on-screen controversy similar to something like Joker or Joker 2. Like, yeah, it presents, yes, like it goes places that I had no idea it was going and that is not in the trailer. Like, it is a surprise all the way down. Crazy trigger warnings, tons of trauma, but also like, what a journey, like what an emotional dive down into something. And like Majors manages to just put it all on his shoulders. Like, it's crazy. Like the physical performance, like the emotional, I'm running out of good things to say about it. It's uncomfortable.
The first hour of this, I was like, he could have won the Oscar that year.
Yeah, honestly,
he definitely would have been. He definitely would have been nominated. He might have won. That's the year that Brendan Fraser won for the Whale. I think the movie isn't perfect. I think by the end there's some missteps. I feel like it doesn't really know how to finish. But the build is really good, and the themes are very strong. Again, it's about these cycles of violence and how do we stop and end them, and then again, the specter of racism is in the back. He lives in this poor neighborhood. He talks about not having to drive 10 miles to pick up groceries because there's no real stores. When he's shopping at a grocery store, an older white woman is very like wary and scared of him. He's harassed by the police at one point. Like racism is in the background as well. So there's a lot of really strong themes, and there's some beautiful filmmaking. I do think the narrative kind of doesn't know how to end, but the like 3/4 of this is brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. My biggest criticism, it has the Return of the King problem. It feels like it ends about 6 times. And part of that is because you're hoping it will. Like, there are parts of this movie I'm like, please just like hit the music and cut out, dude. Like, I'm dipping. I'm good here. This is plenty for me. It ends, I think, in a place that is satisfying. It ends up being a whole experience that I think is good, albeit rough. Hard R warning on this one, man. Like, I got to tell you, if you're going to watch Magazine Dreams, like, come prepped. Like, you better be ready for some emotional dip. But otherwise, I'm running out of good things to say about it. So with that, Andy, would you recommend Magazine Dreams?
So big disclaimer on this. I would only recommend it to people who are very interested in this movie, as we were. We had heard that this was a big hit at Cannes and that it was purchased immediately by Searchlight. And we were very interested to see it, and then it was shelved. So if you're very interested in this and you're okay with Jonathan Majors' comeback, which seems like it's happening, then it's for you. It is incredibly violent. It deals with some very heavy themes. So a lot of it's hard to watch, but it is a brilliant performance, and it is a very promising movie. It's a shame that he blew it and ruined his own career, and he may get another shot. He may not. But recommended for those interested in the property.
Yeah, same. I think if you're looking for one of these movies that's a bit of this like downward spiral movie that may or may not end up pulling up before the end, Magazine Dreams is a good one, a solid entry in that franchise. Like I said at the top, Substance, Whale, Wrestler, and maybe a little of like Love Lies Bleeding with like the bodybuilding stuff and like got to get into shape, right? Majors is incredible. It is likely, I think, the best work of his career. I don't know if he's done anything that's on this level yet. Like, if he is going to continue working in Hollywood and is going to continue landing roles, it likely will not be long before we're getting another performance like this one from him. He's incredible and would have won the Oscar, I think. And it's a shame that this happened and that he did it. So yeah. Anyway, that's Magazine Dreams. Man, I'm glad we got that out of the way. This is a weird one. Glad we covered it.
Only up from here.
Yeah, seriously. Let's get into some things we can look forward to, huh, Andy? What do we call this segment?
It's time for the trailer park.